Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the Politics and Media Show. We're now going to move on to discuss the issue of gender in Islam. What is the role of a Muslim woman? Should women primarily remain at home to concentrate on raising their family? Or should they be more active and visible in society, in the workplace and even in public life? The subject has long been a contentious debate. Some people argue that an active public role for women prevents them from fulfilling their home duties. But women have often claimed that so long as they can perform both roles, then there shouldn't be any barriers. Now, over the weekend, there was a major conference on this very subject. The Speaking in God's Name, Re-examining Gender in Islam conference featured a number of prominent experts in this area. I'm delighted to say that one of the speakers of the conference is here with us in the studio today. Ruqaiya Waris Maqsood is a British Muslim and she's author of over 40 books, I believe, including, what's your latest one?
The latest one is Islam Made Simple.
Fantastic. Thank you and welcome to the programme. We're also joined by Shaista Gohir, who's the Executive Director of Muslim Women's Network UK, as well as the founder of the Big Sister website, which highlights Muslim female role models. Welcome to the programme. Walaikum salam. And in the studio, we're also joined by Ajmal Masroor, who's a British Imam and author of 10 Things You Should Know About Marriage. Welcome to the programme. And on the line with us, we're joined by Tamina Salim, who is actually one of the organisers of the conference and is the executive manager of Inspire, the organisation behind the conference. Thank you for joining us, Tamina. Can you just come to you first and can you explain why you decided to have this conference at this time?
I think certainly within society, within Western society, the whole idea, the whole area around women and Islam and women's empowerment with relation to Islam is a hugely controversial area. And we've often found that the Muslim community itself doesn't address the concerns within wider society head-on. So usually, I think the response appears to be something that goes along the lines of, well, this is a minority within the community, you take away women's rights, and, it's not what Islam is. Quite a defensive position. And I think there was a frustration with myself and my colleague, Sarah Khan, that actually within the Muslim community, we're not having that debate. We're really not addressing the concerns that may be perceived or the actual issues that we find within the Muslim community in relation to women. And if I could just throw in a couple of statistics at this point. According to the National Office of Statistics, mental and physical health amongst Muslim women is the worst recorded. It's the worst reported than any other faith group. And also Muslim women are the ones who are the most least economically inactive. They're more likely to be economically inactive than any other, group of women within a faith group.
Well,
so,
would you say
that
that's
obviously
because
impacts on that? That would obviously impact on their family and their, in their opportunities, etc.
Tamina, if I can come back on those statistics, on the health indices, on the economic indices, yes, Muslim women are coming very low, but so are Muslim men. So is this an economic issue? Is it a societal issue? Or is it a faith issue?
Well, this is what we need research on, Salma. We don't know. The fact is that we do have these areas of concern, but we need more research into why we have these areas of concern. So I don't think anyone, I'm sure there are multiple reasons. I'm sure it's complex. I'm sure it's cultural, interrelated, and sometimes, yes, maybe it's as a result of restrictive religious positions that people are taking. But until we do proper comprehensive research within the UK, we're not going to know. So we need that debate to happen, and we need those areas to be looked into, and we need the research to happen to understand what is actually going on with Muslim women and whether it's, a red herring or whether there is actually something of concern, in relation to Muslim women.
Okay, thanks for that. Well, we're joined also by Shaista. Now, you're part of the Muslim Women Network, a national organisation. How many women are you reaching out to?
We've got 370 members nationally, from Scotland all the way down to Southampton, from diverse ethnic backgrounds, from diverse professions, including housewives and students. And through those 370 members, we are able to reach 35,000 Muslim women across the UK.
So you'd have a pretty clear idea of what issues Muslim women are facing in Britain, you'd say?
Yes, I hope so, through our membership. And I have to say, I'd like to congratulate Inspire on their pioneering conference. It's a good idea. We do need to challenge patriarchal interpretations, because quite often we are held hostage to quite discriminatory interpretations, and we don't challenge them. And I think it's very important to distinguish between the divine will of God and, I suppose, men's opinions. And we do have an obligation towards justice. In the Quran, there are many verses that allude to justice, and we can't forget about justice when it comes to Muslim women. And in, for example, verse 39:18, we talk about, when following the word and following the best meaning in the word, and those are guided and have good understanding. But when it comes to women, sometimes scholars do have a habit of, I suppose, picking the worst meaning. So something like this is essential, and I think particularly now with rising religiosity, good thing, because it, morality is increasing. However, the flip side can be promotion of more conservative interpretations. But just, I suppose, a couple of points of constructive comments for Inspire. I think the price of the conference was probably a barrier for many women. It's probably too high. So the key message is, I don't know. I think the prices range from 125. I'd have to ask Inspire to 250. But I mean, we did promote it on their behalf at a reduced rate of £80, and even then, women were saying it was expensive. So I think it was a barrier. So I think if you want to reach the key audience, you need to sort of make it accessible. I think the other point was, you do need academics in the debate, and scholars. They have all the knowledge. However, you need to be careful not to make a conference too academic. You need to package the message in a simple way. And I suppose another gap was, no representation from a British Muslim female activist talking about, I think, some of the issues that Tamina has just raised. What's our context? And I understand they had activists from abroad, and we do need to be aware of what's happening abroad, but we need to know what our context is as well. And perhaps, they can build on this, and perhaps next time include British female activists giving representation on our context.
Well, I'd like Tamina to come back on some of those points, but before I ask Tamina back in, we have with us an Imam. You just heard that there is a lot of rhetoric around Muslim women, whether it's the British media obsessed with Muslim women, or indeed within our own community, where issues around Muslim women are normally confined to 1400 years ago. Muslim women had all these rights, and in other societies they didn't. And yet the reality within our community still is that many women are oppressed. Many women are not given their God-given rights. Would you agree that there has been an emphasis on interpretations which emphasise more about men's rights and not really so much about women's rights?
Can I just make even more controversial statement? I don't think it's about interpretation. It's about intellectual paralysis that we've seen becoming prevalent within Muslim communities, not for the 1400-year history that we have. In the last maybe 300 years or more, it started from the colonization period. When colonizers went to Muslim countries, the first thing that they did was they dismantled all the civilizational indicators, education, legal system, culture.
Are we really going to blame
No, we're not blaming
the West for
but I think you need to understand
intellectual stagnation?
I think you need to understand the context. It's when all the dismantling of what was Muslim normally happened. And subsequent to that, Muslim communities have not recovered in a free, democratic and fair and free world. Muslim countries now, in the Arab world especially, are suddenly tasting the sense of democracy and freedom that we in Britain take for granted. In the Asian countries, especially now, since the British colonial masters have moved on, intellectual enlightenment within the Muslim communities in that context, which is to do 21st century living, hasn't happened. So when we say interpretation, we run the risk of making the whole 1400-year history diluted and mucky because of the limited interpretation or limited scope for enlightenment within the last 200 years. So I want to be very clear. 1400 years history, out of which more than 1,000 years has phenomenal contribution to the world. Science, technology,
We're
mathematics.
focusing very much on the gender issue.
So today in the world where you see what's happening is as a result of that intellectual paralysis and stagnation. If we didn't have that, we have many
Do you
books.
think in all that time that Muslim men perhaps haven't emphasised interpretation which would suit them? That was a question.
You know what, those people who did interpret even then were interpreting things that were against men too, in some cases. So it's not to do with gender at all in the interpretation. It's simply intellectual paralysis that overtook the whole community. Very important, Salma.